Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans. This is Grand Sumo Breakdown. Today we're going to be discussing the 2011 sumo match fixing scandal and some of the events surrounding that. So, of course, let's start with a Mad Lib. All right, Flarek, I need a noun.
Proper noun or just regular noun?
Noun.
Noun. Dohyo.
All right. Mac, I need an adjective.
Define adjective.
Adjective.
God damn it.
This is going to take forever, isn't it?
I don't know. What does an adjective do?
Jake, give me an adjective.
I had a noun ready to go.
That was my fault.
Okay, how about bulbous?
I like it.
Oh, it describes a noun. That's right.
Wait, are we being serious?
We're going back to elementary.
No.
We'll give Mac an easy one. Mac,
been a while
I
since we
need a
did that.
name of a person.
Ryan.
All right. Simple, easy. I like it. All right, we're not going back to Mac for this one, so we'll go with Flarek for an adjective.
An adjective. Jiggly.
All right. All right, we'll give Mac the easy ones. Need another famous city.
Seattle.
All right. Jake, give me a number.
I can't make a joke out of this. 14.
All right.
That's number wing.
I like how you can hear every single scribble that Ryan makes here.
Yeah, well, shut up. All right.
Just turn your podcast up really, really loud. You'll be able to hear it too.
All right, Mac, we're going to give you another shot at this. I need an adjective.
Quieter.
Oh, Lord.
No. Try one more time.
Slippery.
Okay. That actually works. All right. Jake, noun. You had one ready before.
I did. Aoyama's Mawashi.
All right.
Oh, my.
All right, Flarek, while I'm writing that, think of another adjective.
Anytime.
I feel your pain.
Glorious.
All right. And whoever yells out the first number gets the next one.
9.
21.
All right, 9. That's a number, Wang. All right. I need another adjective.
Harry.
All right. Yep. These are just going to be open to everybody from now on. I need a profession.
Because we're already in like minute 12
Yeah,
of this,
shut
aren't
up.
we?
Profession.
Construction worker.
You didn't even start the timer, so you don't know.
You're right, I didn't.
Sorry.
Somebody should start the timer. Getting some real behind-the-scenes looks at how this program works. Need another adjective.
Long.
Poor,
Long.
like this episode is going.
Body parts. Remember, keep this PG-13.
Arm.
And penis is PG-13, but too bad. Arm is taken.
Weenus.
Arm.
Shame.
Adjective.
Slender.
Yes.
I like how-
I have to double check.
Yeah, you're
each
like
of Max.
fact-checking that now.
I need a famous person.
Harishio Yamada.
No, a real one.
We can't use your fantasy team here. All right, go Edo.
All right, Goedo is indeed famous.
If this is sumo themed, this probably just gonna be boring if we're picking sumo related adjectives. And
Correct.
Stuff.
I need a noun.
Gyoji.
All right. I need a verb.
Murder.
Well, this just took a dark turn.
All right.
Is that the first verb? So have you had
Yeah.
that ready the entire time?
Wow.
We need one more noun.
Hakuho.
Can we do Aoyama's Mawashi again?
All right, let's do non-sumo related.
William Shatner.
Not a proper noun, please.
Clarify.
Jockstrap.
All right. All right, so here we go. Once upon a dohyo, there was a bulbous sumo wrestler named Ryan. He decided he wanted to become the jiggly sumo wrestler in Seattle. So we're going to go with jiggliest sumo wrestler in Seattle.
Oh yeah, now it's better.
Yeah. So he took his life savings of $14 and joined the slippery Aoyama's Mawashi, the most elite heya in the world. However, the glorious sumo wrestler was teased 9 times a day because he was so hairy. He decided to go to the construction worker to get a long arm. It was the slenderest decision of his life. He is now the only sumo wrestler to ever win the Goedo Award for Best Sumo Gyoji. It just goes to show, if you murder your jockstrap, you can truly do anything.
That was worth every wasted second.
Let's give big props to my wife for actually writing that, because apparently you just can't find a sumo Mad Lib anywhere on the internet.
We're archiving this, right?
Well, yeah, it's
Well, I'm
gonna
saving
be,
the paper anyway.
It's going to be posted to the internet for all of eternity.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Done.
All right.
wonderful.
So let's actually get into the subject of match fixing, and I want to not introduce, but probably introduce to us the idea of hinkaku, which roughly translated to English means dignity, but it's not quite dignity as English define it because it doesn't quite do justice to Japanese hinkaku. A person that shows hinkaku is humble, totally honest, trustworthy, and can always be expected to do the right thing.
So chivalry then.
It's a part of it, yeah, definitely.
How about total square?
Yes. Take dignity, chivalry, and total square, smash it into one thing, you have hinkaku. And the thing is, the higher your position in society, the more hinkaku you are expected to display, as befitting of your position. So as a sumo wrestler, even high-ranking sumo wrestler, you should have quite a bit of hinkaku. I'm not sure I'm using that word properly in a sentence, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, in context, are we talking about like some reservoir, some volume of hinkaku that you contain, or I don't know, maybe
we'll just say dignity,
okay,
but just know it's dignity plus.
sure.
So
all
kind of
these-
like knights from the old myths and legends, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. I was going to say this makes all the sumo interviews make a lot more sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I am very happy.
Yeah.
I used my brand of sumo out there today.
Oh my God, he's telling the truth.
He's so humble.
So dignified.
Yes.
Stone faced. Perfect.
But another quote that I found about sumo wrestling, the dohyo is a sacred place where gods descend. It isn't just a ring, and wrestlers must act accordingly. So these two things in the Japanese society are showing that sumo wrestlers should have very dignified, honest, should be the most upright citizens in their community. And so the whole match fixing scandal just goes against everything about those standards. And because of the standards that they're held to, sumo wrestlers enjoy a lot less personal freedoms than other athletes in other sports and arguably live the most restricted lives of all athletes. And so I kind of wanted to open this up to you guys. Do you think it should still be that way?
I don't know. To me, it sounds like match fixing would be a bigger issue for sumo wrestlers than it would be for like anybody else, just because of that perception. It seems like it's not just what happened, but if it, depending on who was involved, it would be much bigger of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to add on to that, I agree. Like, if these guys are supposed to be held to that higher standard, then why even consider the match fixing? If these guys are supposed to be the, as we've said in the past, the rock stars, the the awesome dignity, chivalrous guys.
Rock
that they
stars
are.
would probably be the opposite of hinkaku.
Well, fair enough. But
I get your point, though. Yeah,
if they're supposed
absolutely.
to be held to this highest status, then match fixing just seems like the lowest thing you can do because it's dishonest.
In any sport, it's the lowest thing you can do. It destroys like all competition.
Yeah,
totally.
exactly.
But yeah, I can see why you're saying it's even more higher up. I forget exactly what you're saying, but like sumo is like, it seems like sumo Japanese culture is like in sport form, and so the people care a lot about it, the way people act.
It's
with
like
it.
an ideal more than just a sport. Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more to them. Yeah,
Like baseball players fixing matches or something could be. I mean, it wouldn't be good, of course, but it seems like if this is the ideal that we've built up, that's going to hurt that much more when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. To answer the original question is, I would say yes, because it literally because it's more than probably just in a sport. Like it's all the culture that goes along with all the ceremony that goes along with the sumo sport. You can't just take that away from it and it be the same exact thing. So I think being humble as well, the lifestyle they live, it should probably go with it.
Okay. All right. That's just kind of a introduction to why this is such a big deal and why it rocked the sumo wrestling world. I mean, mostly in 2011, but a few times before 2011. In doing research for this subject, I found something that happened back in 1996. There was a stable master named Onaruto Oyakata and a former Rikishi, Seichiro Hashimoto. Both of these guys claimed that there was match fixing in sumo wrestling, along with tax evasion, ties with the mafia, drugs, and sex orgies. Both of these men died a few weeks later,
Whoa.
a couple hours apart, in the same hospital,
Holy crap.
Okay.
What an interesting coincidence.
which is pretty much what all the doctors and policemen said.
He just kind of died, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. So
Wow,
the
that's
doctor that treated both of those men said that their deaths were coincidental. An autopsy was performed on Onaruto, but not Hashimoto. And the police were satisfied that there was no foul play and did not conduct an investigation.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, that settles that. Never mind.
Now shut up and get back to work.
So they did an autopsy on one of the guys. What happened? Like, did they determine a cause of death?
I don't recall from my research. I think it was unclear or
Just-
deemed natural causes.
He was just diagnosed as not alive anymore.
he came down with a
much,
sudden
yeah.
case of death.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Wow,
insane.
that
Yeah. So, assuming that's all correct, tell us more about sumo in the 90s.
I'm scared now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was that incident in 1996, and 4 years later, there was a former rikishi named Kaisuke Itai in 2000. I don't remember if I mentioned that. He claimed that most matches were fixed. He had audio tapes from 1989 to 1991 that he said proved that the sports organizers knew about this match-fixing scandals.
Please tell me he didn't go to that same hotel.
No. As far as I know, Itai is still alive and well to this day.
We hope.
But yeah, that was an interview that he conducted, and he named names of people that he said were corrupt, others that he said were not corrupt.
Yikes.
But definitely was another thing that brought unwanted attention to the sumo wrestling world, much to the same incident in 1996, and centering around match fixing. But to get more to 2011, once again, we have to start in 2009. So how the whole investigation and how the match fixing in 2011 came about was because of another scandal in sumo wrestling that came about due to betting on baseball. Part of the rules of being a sumo wrestler, you're not allowed to gamble. And so there was a Ozeki, Koto Mitsuki, that was betting on some baseball games. He bet tens of thousands of dollars on baseball games. He also paid $35,000 to a mobster that was blackmailing him to try to keep this whole issue quiet. And
Yikes.
so as a result of this, Koto Mitsuki was given a lifetime ban by the Japan Sumo Association, along with his stable master, Tadashige Naya, for their involvement in the gambling ring. And then
Well, how'd he do? What, was he any good?
I don't recall, but he bet tens of thousands of dollars, so he either had a major issue and was looking for the one big gain that would get him out of this whole ring of gambling, or he just won a lot and kept betting a lot. Who knows? Gambling's an addiction, so
Yeah. Apparently in Japan, like, gambling in general is banned there.
Okay.
Really?
A couple exceptions, but for the most part, gambling's just not allowed.
okay. So
To
yeah,
give a
that
little
makes
context
it
to that.
all the more even worse. And
Not just what he did, but because of who he is,
yeah,
This, yeah, that just,
a rikishi as well as a high-ranking one.
yeah.
Yeah, that
So kind of the fallout of that investigation, there were 2 stable masters that were demoted and 18 other rikishi that were barred from competing in the next basho. And also as a result of this, live coverage of sumo was dropped by NHK for a time.
ouch.
Oh, wow.
But during this investigation, there were some text messages that were found.
Oh, my.
And one of these text messages went into detail about how one rikishi would attack, and then the other rikishi would fall in exchange for hundreds of thousands of yen.
so
I need to go
Henka
get
or what?
I need to go get some popcorn.
So no, not a hanka, but just kind of describing like, okay, we'll meet at the tachiai, I'll push you back, and then you'll fall down, I'll get the win, you'll give me money, stuff like that. There were many other text messages found
Wait,
like
so he gets
that.
the win and the money?
No. So the guy who gets the win would give the other guy
Yeah, okay.
all the money. So as a result of this, initially 3 people admitted to match fixing: 2 rikishi and a stable master. The rikishi were Chiyo Hakuho and Ena Tsukasa. The stable master was Takinawa. And so at this time, there was no police action because match fixing in sumo wrestling is not illegal, just highly immoral and not well thought upon.
It's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Oh, I suppose it would be like
Yeah.
against the rules of sumo, not against
Yeah,
the law.
Right.
The association.
The
Exactly.
ideals of sumo.
If they
Yeah.
weren't actually gambling on something.
Yeah, it's like Pete Rose gambling on baseball. He got a lifetime ban for baseball. He didn't go to jail for it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also got to, wasn't he at WrestleMania one year or something?
He's been to WrestleMania maybe 3 times.
So it was worth it.
It was one to 3 times, and every
Moving
time
on
he's
up.
been there, he was attacked by Kane.
Wait,
There you
Kane
go.
Just attacked him?
There's our fun fact.
Yes. Every time Pete Rose shows up in the WWE, Kane will give him a tombstone. Fun fact. Let's get back to sumo wrestling.
Yeah,
So-
in case you couldn't tell, that's another group passion.
Yeah. So this was actually, despite those earlier things that I mentioned back in 1996 and 2000, this was the first time that match fixing was actually really investigated by the sumo governing body. The previous accusations did not bring about an investigation because there was a lack of evidence.
I mean, there were a couple dead guys.
Yeah.
They
was probably-
just
that was probably
coincidentally
involved.
Yeah. Circumstantial.
died.
Yeah.
Just coincidentally died.
Lots of people die in that hotel.
Yeah. Or hospital. Did I say hotel?
I was
it,
just going
hotel or
off Jake.
hospital?
I think you said hotel.
That was a complete accident. It was a hospital.
And also, they didn't die. They're actually fine.
No. They're fine. They're good now. Reanimated corpses.
They go
doing
by
their thing.
Hakuo and Haramufuji nowadays, so
You know, whatever.
no, they are most certainly dead. I cannot stress
So,
that enough.
okay, well, same hospital. I suppose that makes it a little bit more possible that it could be a coincidence that they were in the same area, I guess. But, I mean, there's no way that it's obviously still too much of a coincidence.
Yeah.
But,
You need to look into that.
Yeah.
Or at least do some kind of autopsy.
Yeah,
no, I'm sure it's fine. You know,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Whatever.
Lots of people die in the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah.
or hotel.
Especially.
Well,
Depending on what point in the episode you're
I
in.
was about to say, like, well.
But so the major ramifications of this investigation into the match fixing, there were over 20 rikishi that were barred for life from competition in sumo wrestling, and the March Basho of 2011 was canceled. This was the first Basho that was canceled since World War II in 1946.
Wow.
Can't imagine what Japan was doing at that time to need to cancel a Basho. And it was also, surprisingly, met by disappointment by fans and rikishi alike. But there was an understanding that something major needed to happen to fix this whole issue.
I can totally. That's probably how I would have felt at the time. It's like, this is important, but dang it. I wanted to watch sumo.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine.
Yeah.
And the Japan Sumo Association, JSA chairman at the time, said it was the darkest chapter in sumo's history, which, as we've discussed before, is a very long and well-documented history. So saying that is
A big deal.
a very big deal, yeah.
Yeah, they probably lost a lot of money on sponsorships, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, I could only imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, how much money would they have lost in the long term if they blew their credibility by not investigating it properly?
Also true.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, like I said, as a result of this, there were over 20 rikishi that were expelled due to the investigation, and they accepted their punishment for this. There were also 2 rikishi that never admitted involvement and were forcibly expelled. They were Hoshikaze and Sokokurai.
Wait a minute.
Bastard.
We know a Sokokurai.
We do know Sokokurai. It is one and the same. So what happened was both appealed those decisions in court. Hoshikaze lost his case, and Sokokurai won his case.
Huh.
And he was reinstated at the rank he was at when he was dismissed, and he returned in the July Basho of 2013. So does somebody want to fill everybody in on what Sokokurai was doing in the meantime?
I've been at the edge of my seat. This is a fun fact that I knew.
Let's go for an impromptu Jake's Fun Facts.
Jake's fun facts. No, I actually I heard about this one because like back when we first started watching, I was looking around at different guys who I recognized and whatnot, And wasn't he a chicken farmer in southern Japan for a couple of years?
Yep.
No.
And then like one day he just gets a letter like, "Oh, you're back."
Yeah. And I mean, he's done well since then. He's been
Yeah.
up and down in Makinochi and Juryo. He's gotten a June U show quite recently, I believe.
Is that how? I know he did super well. Was that like January or March this year?
Yeah, around that time. Not
Around then?
March, but November, January.
He
around
and
that time.
he and Takanoiwa, I remember that one basho were right with the leaders for a little bit until the very end.
Yeah, looks like Flarek's about to do some fact checking on that, but
But
I'm
yeah,
fairly
can't
positive.
imagine
he
you
hasn't
got
been
a
doing
Junior
that
show.
great since.
Yeah, that's
Insane.
I'm having a hard time too, Flair.
Yeah, he's down in Juryo now, and
That's what I thought.
He's falling even further after this last basho.
June U show like in January.
Yeah, did you just
What?
confirm that?
Yeah,
Yeah, June U show in February.
12-3.
Holy cow.
Maybe that's when I looked him up. But yeah, I definitely I was interested in him. That tournament was pretty impressive. He used a lot of just physical strength to muscle guys all over the place.
Would you say it was his brand of sumo?
He was very happy. He was very happy.
Indeed.
Single tier.
Yeah. But yeah,
Insane.
so at the end of the investigation, the JSA Special Investigation Panel said that they can no longer deny that bout rigging took place in the past and thinks that there were more people involved than just the 25 that got punished. The JSA, it is important to note, had fully denied match fixing prior to 2011.
Like full stop, no
Nope, this isn't
nothing
happening.
whatsoever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Denying like everything that Itai said in his interview, obviously denying the two gentlemen who died in 1996.
By coincidence.
Yes, of course.
Just happened to be coincidence. But yeah, so there was ramifications for this, obviously, attendance and viewership of sumo and just enthusiasm for the sport kind of declined at this time. Sumo attendance was at a record low for the September 2011 tournament, and this was in combination of disappointment from the match-fixing scandal, and also at that same time there was the tsunami disaster that happened
wow.
over in Japan. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I could see that being a bit distracting.
Yeah.
Nah.
yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, hey, now that there's a new podcast dedicated to sumo.
Surely they're going to make things, make sure things are on the up and up. We're going to be watchdogs. We're going to
Hang on,
call
right
out
we are.
anything we see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you guys, going back to them canceling the basho, we commented on a little bit, but do you agree that that was the proper thing to do for the first time since 1946 to actually cancel a basho?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Like something had to be done for that. Like anything to like match fixing just takes the competition out of it. It's like no longer a sport. It's like just it's almost kind of like entertainment at that point. And I don't know. I think something needs to be done. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it was probably a better idea in the long run. Like we mentioned briefly, it could be a short-term loss to regain some credibility, but I mean, there could also be the same argument that toughing it out, admitting the problem, but still hosting the basho regardless could have also been seen as a sign of strength and continuity. I can kind of see both sides, but I don't know. I certainly am not jealous of the position that those elders were put in when they had to make that call.
But I think they made the right call. I think the evidence was mounting. They could no longer deny all the allegations. Something had to be done. I mean, the integrity of the sport was at stake. So moving forward, yeah, I think they did the right thing.
What, just out of curiosity, do you know, was the investigation ongoing during that basho? And because what was the next one? Why would they just skip one, or how would they decide that, do you think?
I believe I recall them saying that I don't remember when all like the punishments came out, but I know this all went down in February is when
Oh, and it was the March basho that
and it was the
canceled?
March basho that was
Okay.
canceled. So I can't recall if the investigation was still ongoing or if they just kind of canceled it, put their foot down, and like, okay, we need to do this. This is such a world-shattering event for us. We need to do something big. But yeah, I'm not sure if the investigation was ongoing at that time or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you could make the argument for more than just one basho that they have to get their reputation back,
Yeah.
but obviously they also want to get back up and running so that they can get their revenue. But I don't know What do you think?
But I bet they want to get up and running so they get more revenue. And all the sumo elders, like all their money comes from current tournaments and stuff like that. So like there is monetary incentive for them to get the thing up and going.
You said 25 were banned from sumo wrestling. Period.
Yep.
What was that across all divisions from Makunuchi down to Juryo and
Yeah. It was mostly the top 2 divisions, I believe, but yeah, it was across all divisions.
I suppose those are the 2 where it's most important.
Because those are the ones where you're getting paid.
You're right. If you're at the very bottom of Juryo, you're highly incentivized to do anything you can, ethical or not. Because if you get bumped down one more, then it's a massive drop off.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll make that the final thought on kind of the events that happened in match fixing. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I have a lot of statistics to support that there was match fixing going on for quite a while, and it was fairly rampant during that time. Welcome back. So before we get into some of the stats that support that match fixing has been happening for a while and was quite prevalent, I wanted to ask you guys, why do you think they were fixing matches?
Money. Probably rank. If you go below Juryo, you no longer get paid. You lose your status within the Sumo Association and world. So you really want to keep your rank.
Yeah, I mean, keeping your rank and then just I imagine it's a very tight-knit community between wrestlers. So, like, if you give a win, do you get it back later? Is that part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can
wait and see.
Okay, well, fair enough. But yeah, I can see favors being passed around like that.
Yeah, I think primarily it was just done for the money, for the sponsorship, for the glory, promoting different brands. Yeah.
All right, so let's delve into some of the stats. This was a study done in 2002. I don't have the name of it in front of me, but we will definitely supply all the sources to back up whatever we're saying today and to prove that I did not come up with this.
I'm sure everyone
wow.
will diligently check all of our facts.
Yes. So just general overall, there's a higher winning percentage for wrestlers or Rikishi with a 7-7 record on the final day that you would expect them to have. You would expect a general winning percentage of 50%. But that is not the case. So there was a 25% higher winning percentage than expected on day 15 for Rikishi that were 7-7. So that means they won 75% of their matches versus the expected 50%. For wrestlers that were 7-6 or 6-7 on day 14, they had a 15% higher win percentage than expected. Day 13 for all wrestlers within like that 7-7 range, it was 11% higher. On day 12, it was 5% higher. And
So clearly a pattern that gets stronger as you get closer to being right on that border.
Yep, and there was no higher win percentage than expected before day 12. So everything mostly seemed to be in line before day 12 of a Basho, before things really got serious. And so getting back to Jake's point about was this win given back to them, the next time the same two wrestlers faced each other, the losing opponent had a surprisingly higher win percentage in the rematch. Once again, you'd expect this to be about 50% of the time.
But they're returning the favor.
Yeah, so but then on the second subsequent meeting between those two, so one got a win, the other got the win back, the percentages go back to the expected levels. So the data...
I'm sure it's another coincidence.
But of course.
Oh, and there were plenty of people that would say, oh, that's just due to fighting spirit. The person that's 7-7, he has so much more to gain on the last day. If he gets his Kachikoshi, he's going to fight harder. That's resulting in all of these more wins because they're trying harder than the other people that they're going against. But I will give a couple reasons why that's probably not the case.
Because it is a convincing argument on its face.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But
the person who's injured in 2 and 12 doesn't want to try as hard.
True. So overall, data suggested that 50% of matches involving a 7-7 Rikishi were fixed. 28% of matches featuring a rikishi that was 7-7 or around that area were fixed on day 14, 22% on day 13, and 10% on day 12. Once again, prior to day 12, no real evidence of match fixing. And also, the success rates of wrestlers with a 7-7 record rise throughout their career. So as they gain in reputation, gain favors owed to them,
Get some
their
friends.
winning percentage when they were 7-7.
So if like I in my first tournament here, I would probably have a pretty close to 50-50 chance at that 7-7 match. Whereas Hakuho, well, not Hakuho. I mean, he's not going to be in that range.
No.
But no, like somebody who's been around forever but is in the middling ranks or something.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not as high of a percentage. It's a 5-year vet was 4% more likely to win when on the edge of Kachikoshi than a rookie would be. So not significantly more, but definitely more happening more. That could be marked up to just experience, but
They know how to pull out the fighting spirit.
yeah, exactly.
On the last day.
They know how to reach deep within themselves. They've been through the mud and they know what it takes to win.
They've been charging up their special attack for 14 episodes in a row. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They know what pump up song really works.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That song with the percentages in it. Yeah.
So, one of the pieces of evidence that disputes the they're just trying harder thing was the evidence of match fixing happened to disappear during times of increased media scrutiny.
How fascinating.
So, in the tournaments directly after the 1996 incidents we discussed and the 2000 interview with Itai, the excess wins for Rikishi with a 7-7 record completely disappeared.
So if they just kept on match fixing, they would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly.
They got greedy.
Instead, they like slowly put the lid back on the cookie jar as mom walks into the kitchen.
Yeah. And so there are also some stats that support the evidence given by Onaruto and Itai, the two biggest people involved in the 1996 and 2000 incidents. They both identified, I believe it was up to 29 rikishi that they called corrupt and 14 rikishi that they called clean. And so when two rikishi that were confirmed corrupt by Onaruto or Itai, and one of them had a 7-7 record and was on the verge of getting his Makikoshi or Kachikoshi, the one needing the win was 26% more likely to win than if the two were meeting with neither one of them needing a favor at the time.
Okay, compared,
Yeah.
so like if they had a day 14 or 15 meeting compared to a day 1 or 2 meeting between the same pair?
Yeah, so let's just say Hakuho Harumafuji meet on day 2. There's no favors needed.
We're getting real slanderous here, aren't we?
Let's say so Kokurai and Tokoshoyu are meeting on day 2.
Okay, I'm with you
Believe
now.
that one.
And so there's no favors needed. And so like their win percentage against each other, that's kind of like their baseline.
It might
Now-
not be 50-50 between the two, but you have a baseline. From,
Right.
Right.
Okay,
So
I get
now
it.
they're meeting on day 15. Tokoshoyu has a 7-7 record. So Kokurai is like 4 and the number that equals 14. 10. So Kokurai doesn't need any favors. Tokoshoyu needs a favor. So in those instances, Tokoshoyu would be 26% more likely to win
Than normal.
than their normal baseline
Right, okay.
percentage.
And the people he mentioned as corrupt that lined up with that winning percentage extra on the last day.
Yes, so that was two people that were corrupt, that they confirmed corrupt from Onaruto and Itai. That's when two of those guys met up. Mm-hmm. So if there were two rikishi that met and neither was labeled as corrupt or clean, but I believe Mac has a point first.
No, I was just going to clarify. Onaruto and Itai, these were the ones that are still living, or did these have the unfortunate case of death? And,
So Onaruto was the one who came down with a sudden case of death in 1996,
I see.
along with another...
His coach.
Yeah, it was either his
The
coach
stablemaster
or
or
the
whoever.
rikishi. Yeah, one of those two. And Itai was the one who gave the interview in 2000 that said, "Hey, there's match fixing in sumo. I got tapes to prove it.
Got it.
I got tapes to prove that the Sumo Association knows about it."
got it.
So when two rikishi meet and neither one of them was labeled as corrupt or clean by those two guys, and one had a 7-7 record or thereabouts on the final few days,
Why don't we just call that a fixing situation?
a fixing situation that works. So two Rikishi meet, neither one's corrupt or clean, and one of them is in a fixing situation. The one needing the win was 18% more likely to win than if they met with neither needing a favor. So between two corrupt people, 26% more likely to win. Between people that weren't labeled, 18% more likely to win.
So still significantly more likely to get that favor, but significantly less than people who are alleged by the two
Already
whistleblowers.
labeled as corrupt.
Yeah, I can definitely see why they probably didn't jump on this though, because this is still just kind of circumstantial evidence. You know, it's heavily kind of wiggling your eyebrows, saying, "Hey, there's probably something going on here."
Exactly. There's nothing that you can do to prove it. The stats can show it all you want, but you can say, "Oh, fighting spirit," and then just turn your head. So you could see how this kind of got buried underneath the rug until there was hard evidence that this was actually happening.
Yeah,
And so when two Rikishi that were not corrupt, labeled by Onaruto and Itai, there was no difference in their winning percentage for when one needed a win and when nobody needed a win. So, like we've been saying, this supports Itai and Onaruto's claims of who is corrupt and who is clean, gives both of their points a lot of extra evidence to support them. It also suggests that a lot of Rikishi that were not as identified as corrupt or clean dealt in match fixing, because we saw that 18% jump when there was no identification of if they were corrupt or clean.
Interesting.
So another point of evidence was when people are Yusho contenders or kind of in the higher ranks. I think this will make some people feel better. It made me feel better. When someone was in a match-fixing situation and they went up against somebody in the running for like a Yusho or a special prize, the expected win percentage like disappears. So it's back to like a 50-50 sort of thing. In Itai's interview, he mentioned that people that were not just like, oh, I'm a sumo wrestler, it's my job, I do it to get by, but people like Hakuho was like, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to do this, I'm going to win. They weren't really involved in the match fixing as much.
They didn't show up in the statistics as anything fishy.
Right, yeah. So that makes me feel better knowing that I'm not going to say Hakuho did any match fixing.
He's just our example of a really high-ranking guy who's always in the running.
So it makes you feel good that there's evidence supporting that he didn't fix his way to the top.
yeah. It's just the matches that are kind of not so consequential where they decide to do it. It sounds like.
Yeah, and the reason Itai gave in his interview that the people going for Ozeki and Yokozuna ranks did not partake in the match fixings, they didn't want to give back their win. You're not going to make it to those high ranks if you owe all these people a win.
When each win becomes
Good
that
point.
much more important to hit that 10 per tournament, or whatever. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so those are the big pieces of evidence that these two researchers did that showed, hey, there's probably match fixing going on in sumo wrestling. And this was in 2002, before everything in 2011 came about. So we don't have any stats since then to kind of see how that went between 2002 and 2011, but it shows that it was very widespread in sumo wrestling. And nothing to sweep under the rug like the Japan Sumo Association did. So, knowing all of this, if something like this were to occur again, how would that affect your guys' fandom of sumo wrestling?
I would have a lot of trouble for a little while, I think. Like back in 2010, everybody skipped a Basho. Maybe I'd have to do that a couple times or something. If it became... Like if it was irrefutable like that, like if somebody was dumb enough to put it in text messages and it was completely laid out, that would certainly I would certainly need a break, I think. And at most, I could see myself staying a fan of like the Sanyaku guys at the time or something like that. I could maybe stick around and watch the top rank matches and things like that. But I know I for sure would be disillusioned and I'd need a break for quite a while, I think.
Yeah, I'd probably feel the exact same way. And to the point, maybe not really watch it all that more. If it's rampant, and if it's very widespread still, and it sees no chance of it changing from that, I would probably question why I'm watching it at all.
I'd agree with that. If it was that rampant, then yeah, how can you really trust, which Rikishi is really going to perform and which one's just owning up to a favor? I mean, you'd be more inclined to watch the lower levels, the lower ranks for the guys that aren't getting paid, that are trying to work their way up, and hope maybe that they're honest wrestlers. But again, how do you know?
But then you're not watching great like sumo at the same time. You're seeing honest sumo, which is great, but it's not the best.
Yeah, for the second time this episode, I'm going to bring up pro wrestling. Pro wrestling, I imagine, in the what would that have been? The early mid 20th century or so, where it kind of came out that it wasn't actually real.
Well, late 80s, early 90s is actually kind of when
that recently they were still believing that it was like it was still
when
generally
it was like
practiced.
very publicly known that pro
Interesting.
wrestling was
Okay.
fake. They were kind of keeping up with the charade. Late 80s, early 90s.
At least publicly, they were still okay.
Yeah.
And to that, the reason I bring that up is scripted is okay. I mean, I we're entertained by pro wrestling. I mean, obviously Bruce Willis isn't actually that great at martial arts, but he's beaten up a crap load of henchmen in his time. Movies are scripted; they're obviously fake, but that's not. We don't watch them for the competition. We watch them for the drama. When it's presented as competition and is fake, that's not okay. That's when we're being lied to, when we're not in on the joke, kind of a thing. That's not. We're just not programmed to enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it would kill it quite. It would kill the interest quite a bit. On the other hand, whatever the transition was like for pro wrestling, obviously they weren't having any popularity trouble in the 80s and 90s.
Mid 90s was kind of their hardest times, but there's a lot of
regardless.
reasons for that. But we could go. We could start another podcast about.
Yeah,
that.
let's start a
we
new
could.
podcast entirely. No, but the point though is that if we're in on the joke, if we know that it's being presented as a story, as a drama for us to follow, that's different. I don't think sumo would be nearly as entertaining as something like pro wrestling if it was choreographed. But the point stands that if it were transitioned to something like that, it could be okay eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we find out that we're being lied to and the whole thing's a scam, and
Yeah.
then we'd just
Then
all
what's-
feel abused.
What's
Yeah.
the point? Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I was doing research on this topic, I was starting to get a little disillusioned with the whole thing because I had reached a point where I didn't know well, is this still going on or anything like that? And reading Itai's interview, he mentions the casual sumo wrestling fan wouldn't know when a match was fixed, but I can tell you every single match that's fixed. You can tell when somebody isn't putting their all in. And so I just, especially this last Basho, I was watching it kind of with an eye for that, keeping who's putting the effort forth. Okay, this guy just kind of got pushed back and out. He didn't really try that hard. Is it just because he was overpowered? Did he throw this match to this guy? Was there an exchange of money? And it kind of made me think about that and just kind of get a little disillusioned. But luckily, I could say that I'm not having an issue with that. But definitely at the time, it was a problem. And I can certainly say if we knew that there was rampant match fixing going on again, I wouldn't be a fan of sumo wrestling.
Yeah, the problem is it's just so hard to prove. Even then you say oh, did he just not try there? There are probably definitely times where Rikishi take a match off, you know? And there's nothing terribly wrong with that because maybe they're just hurt or they're just saying, I can't give my 100% because I need to make sure I don't get hurt.
Yeah, or my knee's been bothering me, but I have 8 wins and there's 3 days left. I'm going to take it a little easier. Or something.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think there are definite reasons that aren't necessary. I'm trying to make this other person, this other person get a better record and continue on. This is more so I need to do this so I can continue to be a sumo wrestler.
Yeah, and like you said, that fighting spirit argument, that I guarantee you there's probably hundreds, thousands of matches individually where one guy really, really needed it and the other guy didn't. No communication between the two, no planning between the two, just their situations led to a difference in effort. There's no way that's not also rampant.
Yeah.
But when the other guy gets his win back or something, obviously that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
When the stats heavily suggest it. Kind of makes you think.
Yeah, like it's one thing to see the stats like that, but there is something to that fighting spirit argument because there's got to be a difference in effort depending on your different situations.
So, of course, all this stuff happened in 2011 that brought match fixing in sumo wrestling to light. Obviously, the Japan Sumo Association is going to do something about that. And so they rolled out 6 rules or just 6 things that they were going to do to kind of ensure that this wasn't going to happen. And then they later added on 2 more. And so what they did was they strengthened the investigative panel into this, which I would imagine means they created it since they denied it up until that point.
It probably gave them more
is no
direct
panel.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah. More direct, like suspending or expelling power or something.
Yeah. They created a system of regulations for conduct in the dressing rooms where much of the match-fixing collusion was alleged to have taken place, as well as strengthening of existing regulations. So they created regulations, and then they strengthened existing regulations. They established a hotline for anonymous reporting of match-fixing. They adopted expanded regulations for disciplining of wrestlers for intentional lethargic sumo, a long-used euphemism for letting one's opponent win. They provided guidance and training for stable owners to look out for match fixing. They provided guidance and education for the rikishi. They also are, at the time that I read this, it said they're considering, I don't know if this has actually been implemented, but they were considering the establishment of a new system exempting wrestlers on injured leave from pay deduction or demotion. So now that I'm reading this, I can definitively tell you they did not do this.
They used to have a system like that, right?
Yeah, they did. So this was an acknowledgement that pressure of being demoted and losing significant salary after injury was a contributing factor in many cases of match fixing. So obviously, especially from this previous basho that we just watched, that's still a huge issue, the injury thing, and I think something we all agree should probably be lightened up on a little bit, but that's a whole other issue for another episode.
Yeah, Kakuru's on that same exact point, too. He said he's going to bring it up to next union meeting.
Oh, is he really?
Oh.
Yeah, to hopefully bring back some kind of injury system.
Yeah, because, I mean, without that, his career could be over very shortly.
Yeah.
Which would be a shame, but, I mean, is 4 Yokozuna too many Yokozuna?
No.
More.
The answer is no.
No, I do feel bad for him, but yeah, that's a topic for another time here and current events,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, I agree.
And they were also considering a policy to encourage a resurgence in competitive spirit in sumo. I cannot say if that has happened or not, but that is one of the things they were considering. So, did these changes work? Like, is match fixing still prevalent in sumo today? Unfortunately, I don't have an exhaustive study that I can reference. What I do have is a nights of research that I did. So
The next best thing.
yes,
Indeed.
So
Are you going to list your sources?
the sources is the sumo database online.
Oh, okay.
Well done.
Yes. So
Good citing.
what I did was I just looked back at the bashos that we watched since we started watching sumo back in September of 2016. It wasn't nearly as exhaustive as what the previous research was. I simply looked at day 15, who was 7-7 going into day 15, who won, who lost, and then if they had another meeting with somebody since then, did they give back that win? Or did they win against that person? So I'm not going to go through all the numbers of each basho because that would be boring.
But it's really corrupt, right?
So luckily,
Ryan better not go back to that hospital.
luckily, what I could say was overall in the past, it would be 7 bashos, 2 Septembers, and then the 5 others. There were 31 rikishi going into day 15 with a 7-7 record.
Is this just Makunochi?
Just Makunochi.
Okay.
So, like I said, very limited, but it's something.
Still a good sample size.
Yeah. Of those 31, 16 won to get Kachikoshi, 15 lost to get Makikochi. So that means 52% won, 2% higher win percentage than expected. Clearly, there's still rampant match fixing going on.
Oh, clearly. I mean, another way that would be pretty easy to do a large collection of this
So
is
you're just going to slap my researcher in the face just right now? Not even going to do it off the podcast?
I I mean, I'm going to be much harsher later, but no, another way we could do to look back to 2002, which is when that last study was, we could just take the how many people finished with 8 and 7 versus how many people finished with 7 and 8. I mean, that would be it would be a complete approximation, but we'd be able to do it before we got bored.
But that would have taken into account somebody that started 0 and 8 and then rallied off 7.
That's true, but it'd be a quick approximation to see, like, because if there is a lot of match fixing in that time period, you'd expect there to be a lot more 8 and 7s than 7 and 8s.
Yeah.
Yeah, even then though, like it's not taking into consideration like matchups. You know, there's some matchups where one guy's won. They met like 100 times, and one guy won twice and stuff.
I'm just thinking of ways that we could look at more than just, you know. I mean, I'm sure that. How long did that take you to do that?
An hour or two.
Yeah, I'd be already, yeah. That's too much already.
Yeah.
But no, there's
too much energy.
It would be interesting. I think that original study was that Freakonomics.
That sounds right.
I think that's what because my dad had heard of the sumo match fixing scandal, and that may be how he got. Yeah, I don't know, but either way, it sounds like something that if there's only a 2% in Makunouchi, that's it can't be as rampant as it was.
No, 52% with that sample size is meaningless. It's close enough to 50% that I'd say maybe slight, but probably not. I mean, we can't say definitively no, but definitely not nearly as rampant as it was.
Yeah, maybe a couple matches here and there with one guy wanting it more.
Yeah. And so to follow up, not everybody has faced like who they beat or lost to on day 7. Of the 16 people that did, I think only like 6 or 8 have had a rematch against that person. But in those matches, it's a 50% win percentage for them, so there's no clear like giving the win back or anything like that since that time.
They're just being sneaky about it.
Yeah. So it appears in this very limited sample that we did that there's probably not rampant match fixing going on, which makes me feel a lot better about the product. Moments like Kisano Sato versus Teruno Fuji back in March, probably very genuine. This past tournament, Goeido Haramafuji, Asanoyama, very genuine, not created moments. So that makes you feel a lot better about the whole thing.
There are still a few matches, though, where you are still left shaking your head and just kind of going, okay, what the heck happened here? Bringing one up from the last Basho, Mitakeyomi and Aoyama, where that one really surprised me.
Some people are just bad.
Yeah, there is that.
Or injured. If we're talking about this Basho,
That's a fancy word, yeah.
Yeah, back in July, I remember Takayasu the last couple of days, like it looked like it was an effort thing, and then we hear all these stories of injury, and then he drops out this tournament.
Yep.
Like I'm sure a lot of it is just that constant wear and tear, whether it's a lack of fighting spirit or an abundance of injury. I mean, that's another thing that you can't really account for.
So do you guys have like any final overall thoughts about this whole issue, or?
Yeah. What would you? So the reason this is coming into play is because there are arguably matches that don't matter all the time because it's a round robin tournament. How would people feel about changing the format of the tournament to making sure every match matters?
How do you mean?
That's kind of a good question. Maybe a double elimination where it's just everyone just kind of gets seeded based on the Banzuke they go through, and you just keep on winning. You can drop
so like
out
March
once.
Madness, kind of.
That's single elimination.
Well, yeah, but
I'm surprised
kind
you
of
didn't
like
know that, Ryan.
Yeah.
For those who can't tell, I was
that was a
staring
harsh
daggers into Jake
It was palpable.
because I am probably the biggest sports fan at this table, and Jake insulting my sports knowledge is just,
Common.
It does happen quite a bit.
But no, I completely agree. That would be awesome for the competitive, the competitive aspect of it. But I mean, that there's no way they're going to change their format for
There's no way.
the last hundreds of years.
But changes have happened the last hundreds of years.
That's
they
true.
went from
More
what,
Basho.
Yeah, 2 Bashos to 6. They changed the injury rule that we know of. There's probably a couple other changes that happened. This
maybe
is
one
totally
Basho a year. They can do it your style.
One basho.
Yeah.
Oh, they
We'll be
could do
doing
something.
We'll be doing the wacky yaki.
Yeah.
The wacky.
Get rid of the September tournament, or get rid of the September Basho, I guess, because you can't call it really a tournament in the strictest sense. And then institute a bracketed tournament. That'd be
kind
awesome.
of cool.
I'd
watch that.
Call it the September Open or something.
Yes.
It could be cool. But no, I think I honestly, a round robin being the definitive thing that determines who's the best is
Well,
kinda
round
strange.
robin would be difficult because that would mean everybody facing everybody.
Well, yeah, I guess it's kind of pseudo round robin,
Yeah.
but it's
But I know
You
what
could
you mean.
still
Like
sign them by rank.
yeah, all the top people will face the top people.
Yeah.
Essentially.
yeah, we know what you mean.
Yeah. So I think that's really strange because like there are very few sports that actually do that, and it's probably one of the charms of sumo because it's so different from everything because it's really, really, really in the past. But there are reasons why we went to. I mean, no reasons why but there are reasons why other formats are more prevalent, and because it makes every match matter.
I would be interested. Your year-long research project there, I'd be really interested to take a look at it for Juryo.
Okay.
Just because in Makunochi, if you get bumped down to the top of Juryo, I can't say off the top of my head I know exactly how the pay structure works, but it's obviously not as big of a gap as between Juryo and Makushita.
Yeah.
So that could be fun to look at the lower ranked guys who are right on that bottom borderline.
Sounds like you volunteered.
Yeah. No. That was not what my hand raising was for. But no, I was just going to say Juryo still make probably 100,000 a year or so.
Okay,
Being
so
able to learn there.
yeah, I
120.
mean, if you look at it that way, then yes, that's the much more important rank to try and cling to.
Exactly.
If you have to.
You can still make a living off that money.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I still think it comes down to no matter how many changes you can make to the tournaments, no matter how many different analysis you can do, it still comes down to the integrity of the Rikishi themselves. Whether or not they choose to participate in any kind of favor giving or match throwing, it still just comes down to them and their own perception of what that dignity, that chivalry is.
Hikaku.
Hikaku, thank you.
Yeah.
Their own definition of that and whether or not they're going to adhere to those tenets. I still think it comes down to the individual.
All right, so we'll let that wrap up our discussion about match fixing in sumo wrestling. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can give us a 5-star review and leave a review on iTunes or any of your favorite places to listen to a podcast.
You can go check us out on Facebook at Grand Sumo Breakdown and Twitter at GSumo Breakdown.
Check out our blog, grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com, where you can check out our fantasy league and other goodies.
And if you have any questions, comments, or corrections, please let us know at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com.
All right, that'll do it for this time. Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time, throw your salt high and keep moving forward.